What's happening, people? Back with another reaction, back with some more acid-techno. We're returning to the WahWah label. Luca, you are so inconveniently positioned here. And yes, we're going to listen to WahWah 21, which you wouldn't know if you only looked at the label, because it says this one is WahWah 20, but in the cat runout groove, or the cat number in the runout groove, it correctly states it's WahWah 21. Now this is, I want to say from 2008. We're going to listen to the tune by Steve Mills and D.A.V.E, the drummer, aka Henry Cullen, You're Only Old Once, which I very much enjoy. More on that in a moment. Originally, when this released in 2008, the second tune was a Steve Mills only track, Owsley Acid. Now they eventually repressed this sort of on, I think, the Project 303 label in 2016, and You're Only Old Once was still on it, but then on the flip side was a track by Steve and Jack Wax, which is something like It'll Never Be This Good Again or something like that. I have it somewhere, but as I wanted to react to the track that was on the original release, that's the one that I grabbed. But yes, they did sort of repress this release with a different B-side about 8 years later, I believe. In any case, You're Only Old Once, it comes not directly, but it's an idea built off the sample. I don't know where the sample comes from, so who knows? Maybe this phrase relates to the title of whatever film or TV show they got it from, but it's a sample about an older gentleman speaking to a younger partygoer, and he's saying, like, hey, essentially, don't do heroin. That stuff's crazy. It could kill you. You know, don't even get involved in that. And the younger person observes, like, well, but you do it. And he's like, well, hey, man, I'm old. Like, you know, if you're old, you're crazy not to do it. And so I like that idea that, you know, you're only young once. Well, sure, but you're only old once as well. So, yeah, it's a funny little sample, and I like the phrasing of the title of the track. Nevertheless, it's got really punchy percussion, it's got great acid work, and the sample is used very well at the break. So let's give it a listen. This is Steve Mills and D.A.V.E, the drummer, You're Only Old Once from WahWah 21, despite what it says on the label, from 2008. And it is 33 RPM. Techno bird, as well as that little gremlin rattle that was there before. But I love that, like, acid arterial spray. Here's the sample.
You started snorting heroin?
What's up with killing you? What am I, an idiot? And who you start taking that shit? When you're young, you're crazy to do that stuff. What about you? What about me? I'm old. You get old, you're crazy not to do it.
Brilliant. I love the way it builds up and then dismantles in a bookended way, and I love a few noises in particular, that bird chirp type noise, which is actually what finishes the track. I enjoy that, but even before that there's like this little gremlin rattle. I don't know how else to describe it, but my favorite supporting noise is probably that whoop or whoop type sound. Indeed, it reminds me a little bit of Carl Sagan's imitation of Whale Song, if you know that reference. But yes, I especially enjoy, and indeed, this is related to the reaction I did in the same batch for Audio Pancakes Freak Dem. In a lot of tracks, especially acid-techno, but even some acid trance, there tends to be a section after the initial intro, sometimes even a little bit after the secondary intro, where the tune really kicks up to a high level, but it's still before the main breakdown or the main drop of the track. And sometimes that section tends to be my favorite in the entire track. And so it is here, meaning once it really starts bubbling, where the acid, as I said, becomes almost like this acid arterial spray, just spraying acid bubbles everywhere, that's probably my favorite part of the track. And in Freak Dem, there's a moment where you get the more naked intro, then there's a quick breakdown, a secondary intro, and there's a point where it does this brief little pause at the end of a measure, and then it kicks up to this next level where there's these like acid guitar chords, as I was describing it in that reaction. And that's my favorite section of that track. Now don't get me wrong, the breakdown here with the sample, they're like, wait, you started snorting heroin? That's crazy. He's like, yeah, what do I look like, an idiot? Like, but don't you start doing that. It's like, oh, but what about you? You're old. He's like, yeah, that's, when you're old, you're crazy not to do it. I love that sample, and I am curious where it comes from. And then the acid after the main break, it's a bit sharper, like edgier, and then of course the acid bubbles and the sort of acid spray, it does come back after a couple measures. But the straightaway simplicity and having it nature of that section after the secondary intro, before the main breakdown, that's my favorite part of this tune. I absolutely love it. But as I said in the intro, the percussion's punchy, the kick drum has that Dave the Drummer type of kick to it. I enjoy the like smashed sort of like clap snare. I enjoy the ride cymbal that comes in at different points. The hi-hat is really crisp, so it's just really top-level production from start to finish. I enjoy the chronology of the tune, and as I said, that one section in particular, it's just a masterpiece. So yeah, top tune. As I said, this track was later pressed on one of the Project 303s with a different B-side, and that B-side is great, so also shout out to Jack Wax. But yeah, shout out to Henry and Steve for this one. Great track. Shout out to the WahWah label more generally. Let me know what you think, and Luca, who eventually got into a more convenient position down here, and I will see you next time. Peace.